Tonight, it's the climactic final battle between Superman and Hell. Or at least I really hope it is. Steve Trevor shows us that he still has a secret room where he keeps all of Wonder Woman's stuff she left behind. And it's Geoff Johns' final issue on Aquaman, but at least we still have Rise of the Seven Seas to look forward to. Right? All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 117 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I'm going to be straight with you. This is a long episode. Not because there are too many comics, there's only 14, but just because for some reason my little timer that I've been using, I went over on like every single one. So even before I edit this, I know that I have gone way too long on some of these comics. But hey, more content for you, just a pain in the ass for me, what with the trying to maintain a reasonable runtime. So I'm just going to skip all the formalities and just go right into the books that are coming out this week in this show. So in no particular order, we have Batman the Dark Knight, Catwoman, Talon, Superman, Larfleeze, Red Lanterns, Aquaman, The Flash, All-Star Western, Green Team, Teen Titans, Justice League Dark, Damian Son of Batman, and Forever Evil Argus. Of note there, you got a couple zero-year tie-ins, Flash and Catwoman specifically. Superman is the end of Krypton Returns, and Justice League Dark is part of Forever Evil Blight, as well as Forever Evil Argus being a thing. So all those event things coming up first, and then the rest of the books coming up second. But as always, we're going to open it up with Forever Evil. So check this out. Forever Evil Argus number 2, written by Sterling Gates, art by Neil Edwards. So, last issue, Argus has been entirely destroyed by Forever Evil happening, and then Colonel Trevor needs to go get the president, because that's, I guess, kind of his main thing. Also, Dr. Light came back to life for like a quarter second. So, we open up on the Dr. Light thing. He's just screaming out at the Argus agents around him, saying, "Hey! What did you do to me? Why am I dead? What's going on?" And Ed is telling him not to freak out, and he's just like, "Oh, tell me, where's my family? Bring me to my wife." And then he disappears. And he's like, "All right, well, I guess we'll deal with that some other time." Meanwhile, back at the White House, Steve is being attacked by Deathstroke's gang, which is himself, Copperhead, Blockbuster, and Shadow Thief. Which, if I could just take a second, Shadow Thief is pretty distinctly not a villain yet in this continuity, so I don't know what they're doing. Regardless, Copperhead's knocking around Steve, he unloads some gunfire, and then he starts bantering with Deathstroke. Deathstroke basically reveals, hey, the whole reason we're doing this, we're going after the president, is because Ultraman of the Crime Syndicate wants the president to kneel before him on live TV, and then they're going to hang him from the Washington Monument. So at that point, Blockbuster gets involved, manages to separate out Steve from Deathstroke, and Steve sees the president and two Argus agents are being held by Shadow Thief. One of the Argus agents is already dead, or at least one of them, and so while they're, saying, "Oh, you have no hope, you're outnumbered, Trevor, there's no way you can do this," he's like, "Well, little did you know that all Argus agents have bombs on them at all times, so click," and then the bomb that is on one of the Argus agents, the one who's already dead, goes off, and it manages to separate out the president enough that Trevor can grab him, and they enact Plan W, which is literally just crashing out the window. So they manage to run their way into the forest outside the White House, which I'm gonna go ahead and say isn't a thing, but sure. And Trevor basically says, "All right, I'm working on a plan, I'll figure it out." So then we cut to Happy Harbor, Rhode Island, where we see a cat is licking at a puddle, and we are introduced again to Killer Frost. And Killer Frost is basically just super emo, saying, "I don't consider myself to be a villain like the rest of them. I just am villain by happenstance of I need to feed on like living warmth, and therefore that puts me at odds with most of humanity. However, Firestorm was able to heat me up, full pun intended, without them having to die. But now Firestorm is gone, and I don't want to have to go back to that again. So then she hears someone yelling out for help. It's a mom whose kid is stuck in a car. And he's just like, I'm not really someone who's going to do that, but I will gladly take the warmth out of your human body. And she's like, oh, but the car's on fire. And she's like, oh, fire, you say? Who caused that? And we're introduced to this new character called The Hotness, which is just a early 20s woman who has fire powers. And so Killer Frost steps up and is just like, hey, you're looking pretty hot. And she kisses her, steals all of her warmth, and inadvertently saves the kid from the fire. And Killer Frost is like, oh, that felt great. But it's not the same. It's not the same as Firestorm. That sucks. And so she walks off saying, I need Firestorm, or I need to find someone who can make me a new one. So back at A.R.G.U.S headquarters, Steve Trevor arrives with President and basically lays down the law saying, all right, we need everybody to focus up now. This is all we got. We're going to have to make do with what we've got. Mr. President, I need the A.R.G.U.S key. And the President's like, but I'm the only one who can have that. And he's like, I'm sorry, did I stutter? So he gets the A.R.G.U.S key from the President, which basically allows him to open magical doors to different rooms and open like all of the A.R.G.U.S facilities, including the Black Room, which has a bunch of magic stuff, the Red Room, which has a bunch of extraterrestrial stuff, the Circus, which has a bunch of other dimensional stuff, and the last one he lists off is the Green Room, which everyone's like, well, what the hell is that? So he pops it open, and it turns out that the Green Room is this bright green light that is essentially just a panic room that exists in another dimension. And he says, all right, Mr. President and Etta, get in. And Etta's like, what? No, I want to stay and help you. It's like, I need someone to defend the president in case things go south on my side. So yeah, go ahead in there. So Etta's off the table, President's off the table. They're both in the Green Room, and Trevor locks the door. So then he goes looking for another room, and it turns out he's got one called the Wonder Room, which is essentially just where he keeps all of his ex-girlfriend's stuff. So he goes into the Wonder Room, and inside is a mirror that has the 3 weird sisters inside. And they're like, oh, we knew you would come back, Colonel Trevor, and we're going to take our debt that you owe us. And she's like, well, now, or Trevor's like, hold on now, weird sisters. You said you could see the future, and I need someone to see where the Justice League is. So how about we make a deal? And that's where it leaves off. So I'm okay with the Green Room in concept. That actually kind of works, of just like, yeah, no, we used all this weird tech stuff to make an extra dimensional panic room. Like, I'm okay with that. It does have a voice, which is talking to Etta and the President and like knows them even without them saying their name. So I'm curious if we get a reveal on that. But I'm okay with the Green Room. The Wonder Room, however, just seems kind of dumb. Like, you could have easily just had this mirror be in the Black Room. It's a magic mirror. Like, just put it there. But regardless, they did it here. Whatever. Beyond that, the rest of the story's fine. I think that it's not the most interesting one so far. I think I'm more interested in the fact that Killer Frost is introduced in this, because it seems like that could be far more interesting of a story of like, oh, we need to find like basically a new version of Firestorm, which I think is an interesting method of, hey, we kind of messed up the previous Firestorm and we are kind of just doing some course correction here. I don't know. It's got a lot of things that could pick up on, but by far this one is one where it's like not a lot is happening and it's analyzing a part of the DC universe that I'm not all that interested in. But it's not horribly written by any means, and it's just kind of there. So overall, I'd say it's probably like 6.5. It's above average, it's fine, but it's just not great. It's not even at that level I would say is like good, it's just fine. Justice League Dark number 25, written by J.M. DeMatteis, art by Mikel, Janín. This is part 2 of Forever Evil Blight. I don't think I said last issue was part 1, but it was, and I just realized that after the fact. So, last issue we had Nightmare Nurse helping out Constantine and saying, hey, if you want to do anything big, I grew my own Swamp Thing. So we open up with that, where we see the Swamp Thing. It has like 7 heads, 4 arms. It's huge and it's blue. And Constantine's like, what in the hell is that? And she's like, you know how like you can take a snipping of a plant and then you can grow your own plant? That's what I did. I took a snipping of Swamp Thing and I made my own Swamp Thing. And Constantine's like, he would notice if you took a snipping. He's aware if you pick a dandelion on the other side of the earth. And he's just like, nah, he didn't care. And then all of a sudden, her Swamp Thing starts screaming out in pain. Its stomach swells and then splits open. And out of it comes a itty-bitty normal green Swamp Thing baby. And Nightmare Nurse is like, oh God, I have to save it. I'm a nurse. And she's like, no, that thing's already dead. But the baby, you might want to keep an eye on because it just starts very rapidly growing. And Swamp Thing turns into just normal Swamp Thing, turns to face Constantine being like, hey man, why you doing this? And he's like, what? I didn't do it. She did. And he's like, I'm sorry. So Swamp Thing basically calls him out, says like, yeah, no, every piece of my body has my entire consciousness in it. You took a snipping, you just made more of me. How dare you? I'm gonna kill you with the green. And so he starts flooding them with the green. Nightmare Nurse makes a magic scalpel, which does nothing. And then Constantine's like, well, only one chance out of this. And he touches the door frame to the House of Mystery. And immediately, like, all of the green that was flooding the room is gone. And Constantine is like, all right, I get it. You're pissed at me. We've had our ups and downs, but just hear me out. And Swamp Thing's like, nah, I'll help you. Constantine's like, what are you? I didn't say what we were doing yet. And he's like, look, the green is in trouble because of all the evil in the world. Like, yes, clearly there's an imbalance. And as the avatar of the green, I'm all about the balance. So let's go ahead and work together on that. And Constantine says like, oh yeah, see, we should have just asked him, Nightmare Nurse. This is all your fault. So she blasts Constantine, and then they all agree, all right, let's work together. So they get into a little spell circle, and the thing that they're trying to do is find the Justice League Dark. That is the primary goal here. Constantine tried it before, but he didn't have enough power. Now he has the green and some weird medical demon powers that Nightmare Nurse has. So they send out the spell again, but this time it's fully blocked, and it actually ricochets like back at them and shows a bunch of mutated spells which show up as monsters and start like attacking them the same way poisons would. Nightmare Nurse is essentially immune, so she gives some antidotes to Swamp Thing and Constantine. They drink it down, and it's just like, okay, we're going to need something else here. And then Constantine comes to the realization, I got it. Let's kill all evil. And they look at him like, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, look, during my little peyote trip last issue, I saw that all of the people on Earth have a little bit of evil in them. It's like a blight. It's a disease. If we can just kill that disease, and also it was made worse because of Earth 3, somehow. And they're saying, if we do that, we will win the war against the Syndicate. And they say, okay, but how do you intend to attack something that is inside the body of every single person of the human race? And so they come up with a portal that takes like days to construct, but it essentially allows them to go down into the collective unconscious of not just humanity, but all of the souls that have ever been in the entirety of the universe. And then we stop and we go over to Sea King. Do you know who Sea King is? He is the Aquaman stand-in from Earth 3, who as soon as he came over, he died. Now we see that he is somehow still alive. He's in the ruins of like an underwater city. He comes up out of the ground and says, all right, well, I'm not sure what happens, but I'm here. So then we go back into the collective unconscious, and they make their way deeper and deeper until they finally reach the point of like, you know, this is unchecked violence and loathsome urges. Like, this is the worst of humanity down here. And they immediately start choking on the air, pretty much. Nightmare Nurse throws up a protective shield, and then they find this giant storm cloud-looking thing, which is Blight. He takes the name that Constantine gave him. He's like, yeah, you know, I like it. It works. And Blight basically chews him out saying, like, you can't fight me. I'm literally the thing that makes humanity humanity. Like, I am at your base level, the worst of you. And he looks into Alec Holland and it's just like, you may think that you're pure plant man, but you are still man. And so he strips away the green from Alec. Nightmare Nurse, apparently she's only a nurse because she's trying to atone for some hideous sins that she did, so she's already messed up deep underneath. And when he turns to Constantine, he's like, I don't even have to do anything to you. You're just Constantine. You're already the worst. And he's like, fair enough. So Constantine manages to magically get a staff of lightning, and he jams it into Blight's eye long enough for them to escape back up into the real world. Then we cut over to a new person named Cassandra Kraft, who apparently she's a psychic. She's got some real potential, but she doesn't know what she's doing. And with Forever Evil going on outside, she's kind of just trying to get some answers. Her boyfriend Liam is there, and as they are trying to divine some answers, all of a sudden some demons come out of the ground. They knock out and possibly kill Liam, and then they grab Cassandra and say, hey, the bosses want you, and if they want you, you're uber powerful, so you're coming with us. And they drag her down into hell. So back with Constantine and them after they exit out the portal, he's like, okay, well, if we're going to fight something like that, we're going to need more power. I'm going to find it. So he goes into his room, he shuts the door, a full 12 hours pass, and when he comes out, he's covered in a bunch of scratches and blood and scars. And he's like, okay, I got a plan. We can't take on the evil because we don't know enough about it. So if we want to find out more about it, and they all go into the room, and it turns out it's a portal into the Rock of Eternity, where Constantine has taken the Question, Pandora, and Phantom Stranger, the Trinity of Sin. All of them are prisoners, and they will help out the rest of them, I guess. We've actually already seen this unfold in the last issues of Pandora and Phantom Stranger, but hey, I guess we couldn't get the ordering of the issues right this time around. It's fine. It's okay. It does kind of feel like padding. It does kind of feel like last issue we already established this idea that Constantine wanted to kill all evil, but now he's just definitively saying it. And then not only does he fail once to throw out the spells, he fails twice. It just feels really stretched out for no discernible reason. I think the only thing this issue really accomplished is A, Swamp Thing's on the team, and then B, we're going to show the Trinity of Sin stuff going on, but that didn't need 22 pages to do. That needed like 7. The rest of it was kind of just padding. But hey, we'll see what the Sea King stuff does over Blight. We'll see what Cassandra Kraft is in any meaningful term. All that's brand new. I'm interested still in the story. I forget what the next part is. I think it might be Pandora, but I could be wrong. No, Phantom Stranger. So Phantom Stranger is the next part. So we will see what's going on there. Regardless, this issue, I'll give it just a flat 7. It's fine. It's not great. It's a little bit overstuffed, or understuffed, I guess. Overstretched would be the proper term. But it's perfectly good issue for what it is. Superman number 25, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Kenneth Rocafort. This is the 4th and final part of Krypton Returns. And in the last part, I don't know, man, a lot of stuff happened. Hell can travel between timelines, and he got beat up by Superboy and Supergirl at the same time. And then Superman saw something happening. So all that's going on. We start out in the Superboy timeline where he's trying to get Kara off planet, and Hell's knocked down to the ground, and he's like, I guess that Supergirl must have beat you up over in her timeline. And Hell's like, nuh-uh, but I don't have to fight you here. I'm out. So he just disappears from the timeline and screams out, I will not be stopped. And Superboy's like, all right. Well, I guess that happened. And then Kara's like, hey, do you want to explain anything that's happening? And he's like, I don't know if I can. But regardless, yeah, your planet's got some problems. So then we go to Superman's timeline. And last issue, he saw something. And turns out it's Jor-El. However, Jor-El in this timeline is still in a home, like hugging his wife because he just found out he's going to be a dad. This is an older Jor-El. And we get the explanation here in a second, but basically he says, hey, son, we need to take care of hell. It's me and you. We got to do this. And he's like, what? Huh? Okay, Dad, sure. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And he's like, great, awesome. It's super cool to see you growing up, by the way. That's something I always wanted to see. Superman's like, okay, but like, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. You got to tell me what happened. He's like, right. So I'm from the timeline where hell stopped Krypton from exploding, and what ended up happening was I sent you off planet because I expected the planet to blow up. It didn't, and everyone thought I was crazy. And then hell put me in like a labor camp, and I managed to get some of his DNA to find out exactly who he was, and discovered he was from my experiments all those decades ago. And at this point, Superman's like, I'm sorry, you figured out all this without the magic stone oracle telling you the truth? He's like, yeah, no, I'm super smart. How do you not get this yet? So regardless, they head to the place that has access to the core of the planet, and they say that here is where we're going to be able to make our stand. And he says, oh, we're going to save Krypton? And George's like, no, we're not going to save Krypton. Krypton has to... Have you learned nothing yet? We're going to stop hell. So back in Superboy's plot, Superboy, best I can describe it here is, he basically realizes that the planet, the city that he's in is Argo City, which is taken off the planet before it explodes. However, the technology that he sees under it that is supposed to do that will not be powerful enough to escape the gravity of the planet, so he has to be the one to help it along. Also, he uses his TK abilities, which he just learned a whole lot more about in a Teen Titans annual, to wipe the memory of Kara so that she doesn't remember him helping. That all just happened. So then we go to Supergirl's timeline. She's got hell at like Trident Point, and she's like, go ahead, do it, kill me. I thought you loved me. And Supergirl's like, I did love you, but you're totally crazy, dude. And he's like, I'm not crazy, you're crazy. I'm gonna go change the timeline now, peace. And so he disappears into the timeline again, and Kara turns to the clone army that she's with, and the clones are like, so was that a win? Did we win? Was that victory? And he's like, yes, it was a victory, clone, but at what cost? And the answer is, I don't know what cost she's talking about, because everything went off pretty much without a hitch for her. So then we follow Jor-El and Superman. Jor-El's in like a special suit. Superman's still got his super abilities, so he's fine. And he says, okay, so for some reason, Jor-El knows what's going on in other timelines. He's like, yep, all right, so Superboy took care of the Eradicator. And the Eradicator shows up to every planet that is dying. And he just is. And he shows up on Krypton. Even though he was gone, the planet's still dying. So we just have to come down here and take care of it. And honest to God, this sequence goes on way too long, but I'll just give the long and short of it. So Superman and his dad are down in the core of the planet. Hell shows up and is ready to fight him. Jor-El puts him in a magic tech bubble and says, I've had decades to plan this out. I'm going to kill you now. And he presses the button to kill Hell. And Superman's like, no, we can't save the universe by murdering people. And Jor-El's like, oh my God, are you really this stupid? Like, yes, no, clearly he has to die. But then Superman zaps the button and like destroys it. And then like 3 seconds later, Hell ends up killing Jor-El. He just stabs him through the suit with a giant piece of metal. And Jor-El's like, you gotta do it, man. Yeah, Hell's gotta die. It's the only way out of this. And then Hell screams out, and he's just like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to another timeline where you two aren't a pain in my ass, and I'm gonna save the planet there. That seems a lot easier. But then Superman flies in, and he just starts beating the ever-loving crap out of Hell. And he's like, oh. And it takes like 4 pages to explain this, but I'll just get the long and short of it. Because of chronal energy, because he's time traveling so much, and Superman's literally beating the chronal energy off of him, and then he's going to use it to trap Hell into a time loop where once he uses his super breath, Superman will freeze and unthaw Hell for eternity down here in the planet, which somehow also stops the planet from dying. Like, it won't get any worse, but it's not going to explode. So that's what happens. Meanwhile, Superboy basically, he spends the last week just hiding out in Argo City, and then he puts into his plan, saying, all right, I'm going to use all my power to get this whole city off the planet and give Kara's rocket an extra little oomph so the timeline can go normal. And so he does. It works. However, because of using up that much energy, he straight up dies. Superboy is dead. That just happened. So anyway, the whole hell thing happened. Krypton maybe lives. And then Supergirl pops her head out of a portal and says, hey, time travel, ride home. Come on, let's go. So he goes through the portal. What happens to Jor-El? But then they come across the Oracle and it's like, Oracle, we did it. Hey, where's Superboy? And Oracle, without a word, gets across like, oh, he dead. He ain't coming back. So at that point, Supergirl and Superman go through another portal to get back home, and there's a one-page reveal here saying, but as they leave, for just an instant, Krypton flashed back into existence, and they weren't alone in the universe anymore. And then it was gone again. Or was it? I hated this event. This was such a stupid event. Was the whole point... Here's the thing. I've been confused about what's been going on with Superboy across the entire DCU for like 6 months now, because between the annual in Teen Titans, between his own book, and then in Psy-War, none of those were lining up in terms of what was actually happening to Superboy. I think that they all just decided, like a month before this event started, that they were going to kill Superboy, and they just had to scramble to make it so that, like, oh, he's still on the Teen Titans, but he's also dead here. So, God, that was stupid. As for the rest of it, okay, sure, whatever. I don't know if Scott Lobdell still has plans. I think he is still on Superman for now. I think. Action Comics is someone else. But, yeah, it's just whatever. It's just not a good event. Nothing in here makes any sense. And I mean, it's not even that I felt like it was supposed to make sense. It's just hot trash. It's a continuity wreck is what it is. So all in all, I'd say this is a 3.5, and 3 out of that is Rocafort on art, looks pretty good. The rest of it is just hot garbage. So, great. Happy to have this event. Catwoman number 25, written by John Layman, art by Aaron Lopresti. It's a 0-year tie-in. What was Catwoman doing all those years ago? Well, we open up with her ziplining across the Gotham City skyscrapers saying, I don't even know what I'm doing here. This is crazy. I don't do this stuff. So she's ziplining over onto this building where we see a very rich person party going on as the storm is coming down. And just like, looks like it's raining cats and dogs. Oh, maybe just cats for now. And then we see Catwoman on top of the roof. She takes out a club and she's about to knock out a guard up there. And we see that this is a party thrown by someone named Arnett Crocker. And he's got a lot of resources and stuff. Even with the whole rest of the city out, his party still has power. So that's theoretically why she's here. But as she's about to knock out the guard, she gets surprised by another guard. And then they open up gunfire on her. She's like, I don't even know why I'm doing all this. This is crazy. Let's go back and see how we got here. So 9 hours earlier, she is running from police. And she has a bag. And then we see 2 minutes prior to that, there's a rich guy who's basically taking a cab from an old lady. So old lady's like, oh, it was my cab, young man. And he's just like, screw it. I have money. I'll buy this cab. I'll buy the whole cab company. Don't you know who I am? And I'm going to get out of Gotham before the rain starts coming down. And Catwoman, seeing him being a dick, grabs his bag, starts to run off. Runs down an alley. And as the cops give chase, there's this black cat that starts meowing where she's hiding. And she's like, no, shut up. Go away. And the stray cat comes out and they're like, oh, the noise must have just been the cat. Guess she went somewhere else. Anyway, let's go. So Catwoman then opens up the bag and looks inside. And all she can find is essentially rock climbing gear. She points out it's like grappling hooks and spiky grip boots and a bunch of other stuff, aka all the things that could be used by Catwoman in the future, but it's all brown colored. So At that point, she says, okay, I've taken out the guards, because she uses those tools to beat up the guards, and then she takes one of their access cards and heads down into the party. We then flash back a few more hours where she tries to pawn off the rock climbing gear to her friend, and the friend's like, no, dude, we're boarding up. Like, the only things that people are interested in, especially if it's hot, is food and energy. Rock climbing gear ain't gonna sell. So she heads down the street to the local like bodega shop. We see a bunch of people are saying, hey, we're moving into the Gotham Underground. You know, the underground city of 3 warring factions and blah, blah, blah. We heading down there to stay safe from the storm. But anyway, she gets to the bodega and she's like, I could steal a bunch of stuff from here, but the man who runs the shop, he's a good man, a fair man. Make sure everyone has plenty to go around. And as he's trying to ration out stuff, rich dude Arnett Crocker walks in saying, hey, you may want enough for everybody to get some, but I'm buying up all your stock right now. And the owner's like, no, I'm not gonna accept that, basically. And then he gets backhanded, knocked down to the ground. One of the guards, or bodyguards for Arnett's like, it wasn't an option. We're taking your stuff. So then Catwoman comes up to defend him, ends up clawing the guy's face, and he's just like, ooh, kitty has claws. So then he hits Catwoman, knocks her down the ground, says, stay down if you know what's good for you. And they start taking all this guy's stuff. And Catwoman's like, what could he possibly need with an entire grocery store's worth of things? And he's like, oh, it's not that he needs it. He wants it. He's throwing a whole shebang tonight for all the rich people in Gotham. So we go back to modern day. Selina enters the party. She's dressed in full gala gear. And she's like, oh, these rich people, how I loathe them. However, I'm still going to be taking all their stuff. So, and she does point out, like, she's not a master criminal or anything like that. But she is a little bit of a kleptomaniac at this point. So she just likes taking things, because why not? So at that point, she makes her way up to Arnett Crocker and basically says, hey, I'm not on the guest list, but I'd like to see you in the back room, if that's all right. He's like, oh, you know about my back rooms? And it turns out back room in this scenario basically means that there's like a room where there's a bunch of drinking going on. And then there's like an eyes wide shut room. And then there's a poker room. And then there's a circus room. There's just massive amounts of extravagance, and Catwoman can't believe, while all these people are suffering out on the streets, that this decadence is going on. So before they make it back into the back room, the guard that she scratched earlier says, hey, he's on the phone. You need to go talk to him, or maybe he's here. And Catwoman like hides to make sure she doesn't see by the guard, and she just waits for Arnett to come out. But then she peeks through a keyhole, and over in Detective Comics' 0 year issue, there were some batteries stolen by Black Mask Gang. Turns out this guy bought them. He's got them here. And he is using these batteries to power his entire building. And there's this other guy who wants to buy some as well. So the guard catches her peeping. She's brought into Arnett. And Arnett's like, okay, kill her. I don't care. Like, get her out of here. And so the guard is about to kill Selina with a knife when Selina says, you know what else I found in one of those back rooms, one of the kinkier ones? A whip. And so she starts using the whip to fight against Arnett and his guards. And she's like, I've never used a whip before, but it feels really natural. Feels like exactly like my kind of weapon. So she uses some rope from the rock climbing kit to tie up Arnett. She goes over, she takes the batteries, and she's like, I can distribute these to the people and be a hero. And also, inside of his safe is some other valuables. That's for me. I'll be taking that. So we see 1 hour later, the grocery store has opened back up again, sending out a bunch of stuff. The whole block has electricity for now. And a little stray cat comes up to Catwoman in the rain, and she's like, oh, well, let's get you out of the rain. So as she's walking down the street with this cat, she peers into a jewelry store window and sees herself wearing the modern-day Catwoman gear and saying, well, that's just a possibility, I suppose. It's fine. It's a perfectly fine issue. It's better than most of the Catwoman stuff we've been getting, but then again, it's written by a different person, so I'm not all that surprised by that. In terms of 0 year tie-in, I mean, I'm much more a fan of the idea that Selina was kind of not training, but was always going to become a master criminal, like all the way from her orphanage days, and like she like worked up and did that. The fact that just 6 years prior to modern day comics, she had never stolen anything like jewelry-wise or big heists like that, that seems a bit off to me. I feel like she would have had something under her belt. I feel like in continuity we've established she would have had something under her belt, but that doesn't make it a horrible issue, just a bit out of continuity there. So, all in all, I'll give this one like 6.5? Nah, 7. I'll give it a flat 7. It's fine. It's a good book. It's just not great. It's just another Catwoman issue, except better than the past like 2 years worth of Catwoman issues. So I guess it's not just another Catwoman issue in that way. Regardless, 7. The Flash, number 25, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Francis Manapul and Chris Sprouse. I think Sprouse is on majority of the issue, honestly. So, 0 Year. That's another one of these tie-ins. What was Flash doing back when Batman first started out? So, turns out because of the storm coming in, a lot of cops were called in from other areas, like different towns, and he was fresh out of the academy, and Barry said, hey, I'll go help out in Gotham. And so we open up with him along with 2 Gotham City, like, vets going through their patrol, and Barry sees a dude who is breaking the law. He is on drugs, so therefore he gives chase, and the Gotham cops, one of them is named Spencer, the other one is Harvey Bullock, is basically like, dude, stop, what are you doing? Why are you running after this guy? But he runs down this guy in some alleys, and Barry manages to corner him, pulls out a taser, and says, like, all right, freeze, I'm with the police. And then this guy cracks open some drugs, some red dust. And when he does, he says that he has Icarus powers. And Barry's like, yeah, no, it's this new highbrow drug called Icarus that we've been hearing rumors about, and they make people think that they've got superpowers. So this guy takes the drug, and he manages to get the taser away from Barry, tries to fire it at him. Barry gets tackled out of the way by Spencer, and then Bullock comes in and knocks out the guy with a plank of wood. And so as soon as this guy goes down, he bursts into flames. Barry's like, Jesus Christ, all right, help me put out the guy. And as they're trying to put out the things, the door to this back alley opens up, and out steps Iris West. Turns out they are next to the Gotham Gazette, where Iris is working as an intern, and just like, oh yeah, hey, this guy never stood a chance. I've been researching this Icarus stuff, trying to find a story about it, and turns out that as soon as you take it, like, you are instantly marked to go into spontaneous combustion soon afterwards. So they introduce each other. Barry and Iris are like, ooh, hey, how's it going? So Bullock says, all right, well, we don't really make it a habit of talking to reporters, so we're going to go, bye. And Barry's like, wait, hold, okay. So they get the body into an ambulance, and Spencer and Harvey chew him out by basically saying, like, our whole plan was that we were going to follow this guy, and he would lead us to wherever these drugs are being dealt. You can't just chase this guy down because he's breaking the law. Sometimes you have to let them break a little bit of the law in order to do the better good in the end. And Barry's like, regardless, it may not be a loss. We can get some information from his charred husk of a body. And he basically explains that this drug is not meant for public consumption yet, because if it always results in your clientele from being killed, then clearly it's not ready for sale, because drug sales are always about return sales, about getting them hooked on it. So at that point, Spencer says, look, storm's coming in. I got to get back to my family. I got a sick kid. Harvey will take care of you for the rest of the night, kid. And Harvey basically says, if you run off again like that, I swear to God, I am shipping you back to Central City. So at that point, they make their way to the free clinic. Their plan is they're going to talk to a couple of junkies, see if they know anything. But as they go to walk in, the place explodes. Barry immediately runs in. Iris is also in there trying to get stories as well. And they just start helping people out one by one. And Bullock is like, I'm sorry, what kind of hero are you? You're just running into burning buildings? Like, Jesus. And he's like, oh, I'm not a hero. And Iris is like, I think you kind of are. And he's like, well, maybe I kind of am. So at that point, building burns down. Spencer's back, and he's like, oh, hey, seems like someone overdosed on Icarus in here, and the whole place went up. And Barry's looking around, he's like, I don't know. I'm in forensics, and there's traces of an accelerant around here. This might have been a purposeful arson to make it so that we couldn't talk to any of the junkies. And immediately Spencer and a bunch of the other cops are just like, dude, we have a drug that catches people on fire. The police are already spread thin enough because of the storm and the blackout and all that. Like, it's the junkies. Let's just let that be a thing, and we can use our resources elsewhere. And Barry's like, but that might not be the truth. And he's like, screw it, they're junkies. Who cares? So at that point, him and Iris get separated off from the other cops, and we go back to the Gotham Gazette, where Iris has a whole candlelit thing set up where she's been doing her investigation. And she hands Barry an ice cold beer, and he's like, wait a minute, hold on, power's been out. How do you have an ice cold beer? He's like, oh, I know a fish guy down in Gotham who can still keep stuff cold. So at this point, he's like, all right, if only I could analyze the Icarus, maybe I could figure out where it was made. And Iris just pulls out a little packet of it saying like, yeah, I got this from one of the guys at the clinic. I was going to have a test run. So he uses a syringe, pulls out some of the drugs, and so they basically start flirting with each other. And then while they're distracted, all of a sudden the drugs catch on fire, and she pours beer on it to put it out. And it's like, sorry, I guess I kind of ruined your test. And he's like, no, actually, it responded as soon as it hit the room temperature stuff, which means it has to be kept somewhere that's like ice cold. Tell me about your fish guy down in Gotham. So they head down to this warehouse, and we see the fish guy there, and he's like, hey, I said I'd smuggle a few things for you, but this is out of control. And then this mysterious voice says, like, well, that's not good enough. And the fish guy gets shot. And Barry runs out to try to save him, but of course he's too late. And it turns out the guy who's running the whole thing is Spencer, the cop. And he's actually been purposely trying to misdirect Barry this whole time because he's part of this drug trade. So at that point, we have Barry throwing a punch at Spencer, and a couple of the other guys hear another car come up. Turns out it's Harvey, and he was following Barry around from the very start. So he saw Barry go into this building. He wants to know what's up. These other guys almost pull guns on him, but then Harvey fires first, manages to get the drop on him. Spencer inside basically says like, oh, you shouldn't have come here. I'm going to kill you and your reporter friend. But first, he cracks open a thing of the Icarus drug and says, I need to clean up my tracks here. And he pours it into Barry's mouth. And so Barry immediately starts freaking out. And he's like, oh my God, I'm a superhero. I've got superpowers. And he just lunges at Spencer, tackles him down to the ground, starts punching him out. It looks like he is starting to like smoke up, catch on fire. And Iris is like, Barry, you said the only thing that's going to be able to stop this is extreme cold. I need to find something super cold. And as Barry starts to go into full meltdown mode, Spencer's about to pull the gun to shoot him because he was causing problems anyway. But then Bullock steps in and shoots Spencer first through the chest. And Spencer's like, Harvey, don't tell my wife. And he's like, I won't. And then Spencer dies. Meanwhile, Iris this whole time has been going to a refrigeration unit, getting like the pump full of liquid nitrogen, and then just sprays it all over Barry. So week passes, something like that, few days. Spencer's getting a 21 gun salute at his funeral. And Barry's basically like, Harvey, why did you lie? He was a bad cop. And he's like, no. He needed the money to care for his sick kid. And like, yeah, he made a mistake, but should that be reason enough to tarnish the reputation of a dead cop? Like, no, he was a family man. He did good things. You didn't know him like I did. He was my partner for 10 years prior to this. And Barry's like, if you can just make up the rules as you go along, what's the difference between you and that vigilante running around? And Harvey just taps his detective shield and says, this is what it is. So at this point, Barry's heading back to his hometown. He's done his time here in Gotham. He's about to hop on a bus. And Iris is there waiting. And long story short, it starts raining and they share a kiss. So that's going on. And Barry runs to go to catch the bus. And yeah, that's the issue. I like it. I think it's actually great. We haven't gotten any of the backstory as to how Barry and Iris met in this New 52 continuity. And it's just been this idea that there's always been this tension between them. I think this is a great reveal for that. I think For a 0-year issue, like, who cares? It doesn't even matter at all. But in terms of continuity of the Flash book, I think this actually does a great job of setting that up and saying, like, no, see, they had a history. They did this thing, and somewhere along the way it fell off. And that's something that I'm sure eventually in the Flash book we'll get back to, but nice to see it covered here. So overall, I put this at like I'll say 7.5. I would give it the 8, but I gotta say that Chris Sprouse's art and Francis Manapul's art, while both of them are good on their own, they don't blend together that well. It's a very sudden shift when it ends up transitioning over, but they're still fine. It's still a great book. So yeah, 7.5. Batman The Dark Knight number 25, written by Gregg Hurwitz, art by Alex Maleev. So still continuing on with the Clayface story. Last issue, Clayface, I mean, I guess it was an origin story, but the main thing was that he was in Arkham, he had a friend, the friend died, and Clayface escaped from Arkham. So this issue picks up with the Penguin, who was responsible for Clayface's creation, basically going through his little house of stolen goods and illegal wares, and he's like, I'm looking at getting some extra special stuff this time. Maybe we should go break my number one guy out of Arkham. And then all of a sudden Clayface just crashes in through the window being like, I've been your laggy boy for years. I'm off. I've more than made it up for you. We're good. And Penguin just sends his goons after Clayface. Clayface knocks him down immediately and is just like, nah, I want you to say it. Say that we're good. And he's like, yeah, no, we're good. We're cool. It's like, great, awesome. Now it's Clayface's time. So we cut over to Arkham where Gordon's getting the laydown of what happened. And he's like, okay, Clayface has been here for like weeks. What changed? What was the change that made him want to break out? And it's like, well, his little buddy died. And it's like, little buddy? It's like, yeah, it was a friend he talked to daily. He ended up dying. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's definitely something that would have changed, especially if he was actually into his acting stuff. And so as he's looking at the stuff, Batman, just shows up in the shadows and is just like, looks like this was Clayface lost his audience. And Gordon's like, why do you always do the shadow thing? It's like, it always freaks me out every time that you just talk out of nowhere. And Batman's like, sorry, I'll try not to do that. So at that point, they talk and they come to the conclusion like, okay, if Clayface is out and he lost his audience and he was being adored, he's going to want to recapture that. So he's going to get a new audience. And then we see Clayface just in the middle of Gotham in a busy street, just grabbing a bunch of people with his clay tentacles and just taking them away. And Batman's watching playback in the cave and just being like, wow, okay, I didn't think he'd be this literal when I meant captive audience. And actually, you know what? Sorry, it's actually a good joke here where Alfred's the one who makes that joke. He's like, it's a new term of captive audience. Am I right? And Bruce just gives him a look and Alfred's like, sorry, I guess this isn't the time. So at that point, he breaks down like, okay, Clayface is going to want to perform his stuff. He's going to be in some sort of a theater. We'll look through abandoned theaters or film sets, stuff like that. Places where he can perform his craft, and we'll run it through like that. And he says that it's still a long list. I need help, but the rest of my normal family is not up for that. Call in the extended family. And so Alfred makes a call over to Black Canary and Condor from the Birds of Prey, saying, hey, here's some places on a list. Go ahead and check them out. So we go over to the place where Clayface is. It's in a theater. He's got all of his captives strapped down. He's giving them like IVs and stuff and stimulants to make sure they stay awake. Like, they are going to be forced to sit here and not move no matter what. But he's also feeding them a mysterious green juice. And we see 6 months ago, Clayface went and spoke to the Joker, who was right around death of the family time because he's got his face strapped on. And he basically is buying a bit of Joker toxin from the Joker in order to be worshipped, is what he says. So he straps that in, feeds it into their IV drip, and then all at once, everyone starts smiling, and then they start laughing against their will. And Clayface is like, yes, this is what I want. This is the adoration I needed. So he starts putting on the show. He's going through all the lines, transforming to all the parts. Batman gets in contact with Black Canary and Condor, they're going to the locations, not getting any luck. And then Batman stumbles across it. He says, oh, found him. All right, cool. So he jumps in, punches out Clayface. He comes to the realization, like, Joker toxin? Are you kidding me? Are you using Joker toxin on these people? And he's just like, oh, it would have been great, but then you came and ruined everything. So Batman starts fighting against Clayface, fires off some batarangs. Of course, he gets punched pretty hard, but in the end, he does end up managing to take Clayface and kick him into a giant vat of some sort of molten something. Why this is in a theater, I'm not sure. But regardless, it is. So, at that point, all the rest of the people there, they're freed from their thing. Turns out it was a very low-grade Joker toxin, so as soon as they're disconnected, they're basically automatically good. And Gordon looks down into this vat, and we see, like, goop of Clayface rising back up to the top. And Batman steps up, and he's like, I'm standing here in the shadows, and I'm going to speak now. And Gordon's like, okay, that's not better, but thank you. Thank you for that. So Batman basically says we need to put him back in Arkham. Gordon says we tried it over and over and over again. It's never worked. How are we supposed to keep him there? And Batman comes up with the idea of basically making a new cell that is pressurized, but is also kept at extremely high temperatures, so that Clayface is essentially being cooked the whole time. He's being baked like clay. So, yeah, that's where it ends. It's just Clayface in a little oven where he's being kept at high temperatures. So, yeah, that's the issue. I liked it. I think it was good. It's been weird for this Clayface arc, and I don't even know if it's done yet, because I would have said that 2 issues ago as well, because it ended in a very similar spot. But it's weird that it feels so episodic. It feels so just like, and here's the adventure Clayface gets into this week. It doesn't feel like an overarching tale is going on. And in that same way, it doesn't feel like there is any growth or anything. It doesn't feel like there's a through line. It's just Clayface keeps getting out, and it keeps on being a problem. So as much as this has been at least a 4-issue arc, it does definitely feel like it's not an arc. It's just a collection of Clayface stories. It pretty much can be read in any order. But yeah, no, I'd say it's probably... I mean, it's good. The art's fantastic, and I really do enjoy it, but I do think there is just a bit too much of, like, why were the Birds of Prey called in? Especially if they didn't end up contributing anything to the book. I'm going to say this is just a flat 7. It looks fantastic, and I do like the way that the characters are written. It's funny as well, but it's just not like a story, you know? It's just, here's a little slice of what it is. So, yeah, I guess that's what I was looking for, a more overarching plot to examine Clayface rather than just this one-by-one stuff. But 7.5 still nothing, or sorry, 7? I forget what I said, but I'm going with a 7. 7 is nothing to sneeze at. Damian, Son of Batman, #2, written and art by Andy Kubert. So last issue, Batman died, and at the very end of the issue, Bruce Wayne showed up and said, Damian, I know you've been killing a bunch of criminals who may or may not have been responsible for Batman dying. How dare you? And I said, that's weird, because Bruce Wayne is Batman. And a person commented back, JK6919, saying, actually, that was Dick Grayson as Batman. And I said, actually, nothing in the issue suggested that that was Dick Grayson. If anything, they were suggesting it was Bruce Wayne the whole time. Well, JK was right. JK, it's the very first page here, it says, yep, Dick Grayson's death is my fault, says Damian. However, I stand by my statement in that they were just trying to mess with you. The fact that it took literally 2 panels for them to reveal that it was Dick Grayson meant that first issue was just supposed to be, is it Dick? Is it Bruce? Regardless, Bruce storms up and he says, oh, we end this here, Damian. You've gone against my principles. Damian's like, your principles have failed. Look how much Gotham's doing better with me just killing everybody instead. So big fight scene breaks out, and Bruce has the unrelenting edge on Damian. Like, there is, even though he is in his old age here, he is just not holding back on Damian and is letting him down. And so as he starts beating the ever-loving crap out of Damian at the end here, he basically says, you're not going to commit another murder. You're not ever going to be Batman, and you are no longer my heir. And then Damian fires off a grappling hook gun into Bruce's side, and it just takes him out. He goes down and he falls unconscious. Alfred sees this. He runs in like, what did you do? He's losing so much blood. It's a good thing that he was literally Batman, or else he'd already be dead. And Damian's like, oh, let me help. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. And Alfred's like, haven't you done enough? Get out of here. So Damian runs off. He goes back to the church from the first issue, goes into confession, and is basically like, I killed my mentor and also my dad. Well, maybe, he might not. He's not actually dead. He's almost dead. He's on death's door. And the priest is basically saying, like, look, don't kill, but you need to be Batman. You need to take up your role as Batman. Be righteous and forgiving, but, like, don't see death as a tool that you can use. And Damian's just like, okay, I get that, but, like, no. And so the guy basically... The priest is basically going on saying, like, your father was fantastic. Learn from him. You can surpass the reputation of your father. You can be the greatest crime fighter the world has ever known. Just stop killing people. And as he goes over to check on Damian, Damian's already gone. So we see a few days pass, and he's running scans, basically trying to figure out where the Joker could be, because obviously this all started from a Joker fish. And he talks about how he's playing chess against someone online. And he's been playing against them for years. And, like, he almost never wins. This guy is 100% like the smartest man he's ever met. So, but he has no idea who this guy is. And then finally on his tracking computer, there is a glimpse of the Joker showing up at Arkham Asylum. And he's like, all right, time to deal with this. And he goes down into the cave and he's about to head out as Robin. But then he's like, I can take the role of the Batman, though. And he looks at the Batman's outfit that's in the glass case. He pops it open, and we get the suit up montage where he's also adding in his own flair until finally we get to the hooded version of Batman, or not hooded, but high collared version that we've seen throughout this timeline. So he heads into the room where his dad is being kept. He's hooked up to all these machines and stuff, and he basically says, like, hey, Dad, I'm sorry about everything, and also, like, Dick Grayson, a lot of stuff there, but I'm going to change. I'm going to be different now, and I'm not going to let you down. And so he heads out on the town as the next Batman. So he goes over to Arkham, and as he walks in, he's talking about how his dad and Dick Grayson were always telling him, like, horror stories of this place and how awful it was. But as he walks around, he's like, it doesn't seem that bad, I guess. But then he wonders why the Joker would be coming back here, because obviously this would be like an awful place for the Joker of how he was treated here. And as he makes his way into Joker's cell, he sees a whole bunch of, like, wallpaper, and the padded walls are all torn off and whatnot, but he sees a little piece of red hair and a stuffed bear doll. And he somehow pieces together that this is Professor Pig. Okay, so I don't even know what this next page is, to be honest. We have a nurse who is taking care of Bruce in his home, and she's basically just recounting, and she's, like, hideous. She is not a good-looking nurse. And she is saying all this stuff of, like, oh, my husband, he's an alcoholic, and whenever he comes home at night, he never turns on the light. He just gets into bed. And I'm like, how does he even know what he's doing in the dark? How is it going on? And then he reveals that the husband hits her, and then she just walks out. I don't know what this character is, and she's got, like, a thick Boston accent. I don't know. Regardless, we see Professor Pig is making some Dollatrons, which is, of course, his thing. He takes some kids and, like, experiments on them. And so Damian swoops in, breaks through a window, finds Professor Pig. Pig sicks all the Dollatrons on him and reveals, like, yeah, no, the Dollatrons, they are just kids, so I have to pull my punches, but they've got this synthetic skin thing that makes it like a super hard polymer that is, like, really, really hard to fight anyway. So the kids take him, they start hitting him with, like, hammers and stuff, and then they knock him out, pick him up, and throw him out the same window again. And there's several stories up, so it's like, oh, let's see if the bat can still fly. So he's falling to his death, and that's the issue. I think this one had a lot more oomph to it, with the reveal of Bruce still being alive last issue, leading into Bruce essentially taking away his birthright, and then Damian claiming it anyway, being like, I'm going to be the next Batman, a better Batman. And then immediately going on this thing with Professor Pig. I think this story has potential to it, but I also am not sure what the end goal is. Obviously, it's Damian stepping into the role of Batman completely. I'm just not sure what the event is that's going to be able to say wholeheartedly, like, and he's done it. I do think it does have to end with him not killing someone, like, whether it's Professor Pig, whether it's Joker, who knows who it is at this point, but it's just got to be something of, he has the chance to kill them and he says, no, that's not Batman's way. So we'll see what happens when we get there. Overall, this issue, more straightforward, I feel, than last issue, because it's not having to hide this little reveal behind it the whole time, but it's still not great. I would say this is probably like a 7.5. It's a good issue. It's a fine issue. It's just, I don't know what it's missing for me. Maybe the fact that it literally, I know for a fact it has no stakes, because not only is it not the main timeline, it is definitively like a timeline that we know is not happening. So yeah, just waiting for something to make me like really care about it. But 7.5 in the meantime. Talon number 13, written by James Tynion IV, art by Emanuel, Simeoni. So last issue we had a whole thing of Talon basically coming back to Gotham, Butcher making a deal with Sebastian Clark saying, hey, let's kill Gotham City together. And yeah, it was just kind of a getting everything back into Gotham position and getting all the villains on one side. So we open up with the Court of Owls talking to Sarah, which is, of course, Casey's daughter, and having fully brainwashed her, they present her with her own Court of Owls mask. And Sarah's like, I miss my mommy. And she's like, oh, yes, of course you miss your mommy, but you're part of our group now, so get over that. And don't you love us too? Don't you love us more than your mommy? So we then see that Talon and his group, along with Sarah's people, have been going all around Gotham, searching everywhere they can for any hint of the Court of Owls, because they've essentially just disappeared post everything else going on, and they can't find anything. And specifically, that's upsetting Calvin, because that means they can't find Sarah. That's the primary goal here now. So we go to the Harbor House, which is where the Court of Owls had their headquarters and where they ended up all dying at the end of the original Batman arc. And Sebastian is being walked through it by a real estate agent, basically saying like, oh yes, I heard this was place Court of Owls. Hey, could you show me the room where they all died? And he makes his way in there. And he asks the real estate agent, like, do you believe in the Court of Owls? And the real estate's like, not really, but like this place does have a major owl theme to it, if that's your bag. And then all of a sudden, the Butcher pops out through a painting of an owl and starts killing the real estate agent. And Sebastian's like, well, I guess I'm taking this place back over again because it was rightfully mine before it was ripped away from me by Lincoln March and Batman. So at this point, he looks out the window, and apparently they're right across the street from the Orchard Hotel. And we see the whole team, I want to say Team Talon, but that makes it sound like the evil side. So Calvin's team, they're going over all the places that could be left. Calvin's really pushing for Amusement Mile. He really thinks that that's a strong point. But the rest of the group is like, look, we had this thing once where we were looking for some people. And we thought they would have had like this big headquarters, this place where like they had to be. But there weren't. Everyone was just living in their own houses. And they just met up when it was like at one of those places. It wasn't a central place we were looking for. And so despite the fact that the Orchard Hotel has had like all of its wealth and stuff melted down, like way back in issue like 4, the hotel is still owned by the Court of Owls, so likely its people are all just living in there. And Calvin still doesn't think it's the case, but Sarah's like, Casey's like, all right, you go check out the hotel, because you've already been in it. You know the place a bit better. My guys will go check out Amusement Mile. Okay? And as the other guys leave, Calvin and Sarah have a little moment. Sorry, Casey. Don't know why I keep messing that up. Calvin and Casey have a little moment, and it's like, oh yeah, I love you, and we'll be sure to get Sarah back. So over at the Orchard Hotel, we see the head, Wycliffe, from the Court of Owls, making his way into a secret room, and as he goes in there, he sees a whole bunch of owls dead inside, and he's like, oh god, he's here, oh geez. So he starts calling people up, heading into a secured place, and as he gets into a room, Calvin intercepts, being like, hey, you sent me to Santa Prisca and you expected me to die, but I'm still here. Tell me where Sarah is. And Wycliffe's like, dude, bigger problems right now than you. And he's like, you don't got bigger problems than me. And then as he's asking where Sarah is, little voice behind says, I'm right here. And we see Sarah and the butcher are hand in hand. So at the heart of the hotel, the place that was all melted down, we see Sebastian making his way in with a bomb. And he's like, well, I always thought this place was a bit gaudy, but hey, it's gonna do me some good here. And we see the dude who was like melted down in there. He's still there and he's still conscious. He's just stuck there. And he's like, well, at least this will be the sweet release of death for you. I mean, probably. We'll see. Bye. So at that point, Casey gets up and, she's still missing an arm and an eye. And she's talking to one of her guys and just like, look, Calvin has gone quiet. It's definitely going to be the Orchard Hotel. We got to move in. And the guy's like, Batman said that if we moved in without his permission, he would come and get us. And it's like, yeah, well, tough. This isn't Batman's fight. So at that point, Calvin basically taunts the butcher into letting Sarah go, setting her down, and starting a fight to the death. Meanwhile, Wycliffe has managed to escape the room. He's starting to make his way out. He wants to evacuate, but then Sebastian cuts him off, knees him in the balls, and just leaves him in the elevator saying like, oh, Wycliffe, you shouldn't have crossed me. You knew how this had to end. And he says that he's about to like bomb the place, blow the whole place up. And Wycliffe's like, dude, you're going to die too then. We got to get out of here. And he's like, no, not before you. So then Sebastian shoots him in the head, goes down to where Sarah is, and basically is like, hey, did you know Calvin is upstairs and he's fighting against Butcher? You want to go see that? And she's like, yeah, I want to be the one who kills Calvin. Let's kill him dead. Let's shoot him in the head. So, yeah, she's messed up now. A fight between Calvin and the Butcher goes off, and we see that Calvin manages to get a bomb on the back of the Butcher, and it blows up but doesn't do that much damage to him. And he's just like, all right, well, I've had enough of this. Time to kill you now. So he pulls out a syringe, which, I don't know, like 4 or 5 issues ago was going to be used to kill Strix from the Birds of Prey crossover. And he's got one now. He's like, now I'm going to use this on you, and you're going to just slowly dissolve into a puddle of goo. And then Sebastian comes up saying like, hey, I'm your Grandmaster. I order you to back off. And Butcher's like, no, screw that. I want to kill. So he injects the syringe into Calvin's neck, but then all of a sudden, wall explodes next to them. Syringe manages to come out of the body without much fluid going in. He's not okay. He's like foaming from the mouth. And as Sarah is screaming out like, no, I wanted to see him die. Let him die. Let him burn. We see Casey and her whole gang coming in. Casey's got a like 90s as hell cybernetic gun arm. And it's like, all right, time to end this once and for all. So, yeah, next issue, big fight. Might even be the finale. Not of the book. That has another 3 issues afterwards. But of this arc, who knows? I like it. I think it's fine. I don't know. Something about the pacing. I'm not even sure what it is. There's just something about like how it was paced out. Maybe it is the idea that like they were told you got to wrap this up, because I know I've mentioned this before, but I did actually talk to James Tynion years and years ago, and he basically said that he was kicked off this book more or less right before it ended, and then the last few issues were given to someone else. I wonder if this is just a thing where he was told like, all right, you're wrapping up next issue or the issue afterwards, and then you just got to be gone. And he's just really quickly trying to get this all through and done with. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the way it feels. It just feels a bit too fast paced. But hey, it's at least wrapping up all the plot lines well enough here. I'm interested in it. I'd still say this is probably like a 6.5. Not fantastic, but not, below average. It's a fine enough book, and I'm curious to see how we wrap it up. So yeah, we'll see when we get there. Red Lanterns number 25, written by Charles Soule, art by Alessandro Vitti. So last issue was the wrap-up from the Lights Out story, where for the Red Lanterns, the only major thing is that they were given their own sector to police. One full sector just taken away from the Green Lanterns, given to the Red. So we open up in Sector 1008 on a planet where there's this giant, kaiju-sized Red Lantern just smashing around the city. We get dueling narrations. One of the sides says, oh, this is Itro. He's the last of his kind. His people were all killed off by a much smaller race that hunted them. He was forced into hiding, and now that he's got a Red Lantern ring, his rage is getting revenge for him today. And the other narration says, this is Itro. His species was consuming one of the most crucial natural resources, and the people on the planet did everything they could to negotiate and try to make it work with their people, but in the end it just completely broke down. And so to save the planet, Itro's people had to be killed, but now Itro's taking his vengeance. So we cut over to I'm just going to call it the Red Lantern ship. It has another name, the Calvar, but it's the Red Lantern ship. And we see that all of the Red Lanterns are just pouring alcohol into Zilius Sox's mouth because he's just able to take it, until eventually they're throwing bottles in there as well. And he's like, guys, I'm okay with liquid, not the... And so he throws up, and then it's because it's the red, nitrous... What's it called? I can't remember the term, but it burns through the floor. And he's like, I'll clean that up. I'll fix that. So Rancor is talking to Guy Gardner, and basically he's like, hey, sorry to hear about Oa. That was kind of your home planet, right? He's like, no, my home planet's Earth. I just worked at Oa. You got to keep track of your home planet. It's important. So at that point, whatever his name is, the brain one, he comes in and he's basically like, hey, why are we partying? Atrocitus wouldn't approve of this. And Blaze is like, Atrocitus is gone, man. Screw him. It's Ratchet. That's what it was. Screw that, Ratchet. We're all just going to have some fun now. That's what the Red Lanterns are about. And then Guy comes up and he's like, actually, you know what? We do have one job we need to do. We're now in charge of a sector, and not just any sector, Sector 2814. And at that point, Rancor is essentially just kind of the idiot for this issue. And it's specifically so that they can explain all these space terms and how the sectors work out and stuff like that. But they basically explain 2814 is the sector with Earth in it. It's just this cut up section of space, and now we are the law of the area. So that's what it's going to be. And at one point they basically say oh yeah, well, we have sector that. It makes sense because the Red Lanterns are 2/5 human. So yeah, that makes sense. And then Rancor points out well, it used to be more because Dexstar was from Earth too, right? And Scalix points out oh, well, we better hope that he doesn't come back because Dexstar's totally going to kill Guy Gardner. He's like, I'm not worried about a cat. And it's you should be. That's the meanest cat I ever saw. Speaking of which, out in space, Dexstar is still hauling around Atrocitus, and Atrocitus is kind of just getting real emo. He's just like, I keep on trying to run the Red Lanterns and they keep on bad things happening. That's why do I even try? And then Dexstar's like, oh my God, shut up. You are Atrocitus. Be enraged. Stop being a little bitch. He's just like, you're right. I will be enraged. Anyway, I sent out some rings before I was deposed. Maybe we should try finding one of those, because I have a much better chance of ripping a ring off a newbie than one of my experienced guys. So Dexstar senses where one is, and it's, of course, that giant kaiju guy. But they don't know that, so they head down to the planet. We see Ratchet just looking at Zilius Ox passed out in a drunken stupor. And it looks like his ring is trying to leave his body, and he kind of just like wills it back into place. He's like, no, just hold on. I'm not done yet. Hold on. And so he goes and talks to the rest of the group, and he's like, hey, everyone. So I've been thinking, everyone in the universe will still think that the Green Lanterns run Sector 2814 unless we make a big like display of it. We need to show them that the Red Lanterns are in charge and like what our decrees are. And so Guy points out like, okay, well, what even are our decrees? And it's like, well, it's basically do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody. And he's like, all right, yeah, that's good enough. So Ratchet points out like, okay, but it's not good enough. The Green Lanterns were always reactive. We need to be active. We need to be proactive and stopping people before they do things. But if we're going to make a statement, I got one guy who I think is great. He's in Sector 2814. His name is Jen Sui. He's essentially an evil dictator. His planet had 2 species on it, and his species has completely enslaved and subjugated the second species. And once he has exhausted the natural resources on his planet, he started constructing a Dyson sphere around the star in his system. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's so evil. And Rancor's like, I don't know what that is. And he gets the explanation, and he's like, oh, it's like a Death Star. Okay, got it. No, that sounds evil. So we cut back over to Atrocitus and Dexstar real quick. Etor, or whatever his name was, is just sitting in the rubble of this city, just looking like, oh God, what have I done? And Atrocitus is like, okay, yeah, that might be a bit too big, but you know what? I have an idea. Fly me up there. So they fly up next to the guy and says, I'd like to speak to him. We don't get the rest of that, but I'm sure we will. So the rest of the gang is cleaning up after the party. Like, we just see them putting away like cans and stuff. And they start saying, okay, so what's the plan? How do we take out this Gen Sui guy? And it's like, okay, here's the plan. We're going to go in there. We're going to take his second in command, and then that'll draw him off planet, and then we can attack him while he's in the defense position. And it's like, okay, how do you intend we do that? And Blease pipes up saying that the pirate who originally owned this ship was actually friends with this guy. And it's like, okay, well, how does that help us? And it turns out Rancor is able to use his constructs to make disguises, basically, which I remember that being a thing, but I didn't know it worked for just anybody at all. I thought it was like one specific guy. So regardless, they say, okay, so that's the plan. We're going to fly into the planet. We're going to get up close to this guy. And then when he's least expecting it, we'll attack him. So they get down the planet, and this guy welcomes the pirate as an old friend. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, come. We've got a whole show with these slaves. Isn't it great? And he keeps on talking about, like, oh, yeah, no, this enslaved species, like, they're the worst. They're vermin. They're awful. We eat them sometimes. In fact, this pirate guy, I remember you loved eating them. And by the way, the name's pirate guy is A.R.G.U.S. I may or may not remember that next issue. But regardless, he's like, oh, yeah, hey, pirate guy, A.R.G.U.S. Remember how much you loved eating them last time? Have I got a treat for you? And he walks Barg and all of the rest of the Red Lanterns who were there down into a lower level. And he's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what Barg's been craving. And he opens up the door, and on the other side is the real Barg. And he says he's been craving revenge. So it turns out Barg survived, and now the Red Lanterns are trapped in enemy territory where nothing is working out. So yeah, this is going to go well. I think it is a bit dense. I do think there's a lot to this issue that doesn't need to be there. For instance, the entire explanation of like how sectors work and stuff like that. I get for someone who like may have just jumped onto this book, it could be useful, but like they gave the whole shebang that I kind of just glossed over. And then they gave a whole shebang as well on what a Dyson sphere is, which again, you can just say things and then if your audience knows it, they know it. And if they don't, like they can look it up. The Dyson sphere is just a thing. You don't have to explain, like people can Google that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a little iffy for me and how dense it is, but it sets up a good conflict. I'm interested in it. And honestly, I'm a lot more interested in what Atrocitus and Dexstar are doing elsewhere. Cause that's just an interesting plot of like, can Atrocitus basically talk the ring off of this guy? Maybe. He seems real emo. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a flat 7. But I am looking forward to the next issue or two. I want to see how this shapes out because it's essentially the Red Lantern's first mission as a peacekeeping entity, and whoo boy has it gone poorly. Larfleeze number 5, written by Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, and art by Scott Kolins. So, last issue, Larfleeze was taken captive by the Orange Lantern Corps, because that's just a thing he's doing now, and also Stargrave was brought to the planet of, like, despair or whatever, because it's the sister of the Wanderer. There's a lot going on. So this one is intercut between two very separate plots. I'm just going to give you the two plots because they're both pretty basic. Starting off with the Stargrave one, they are still on this planet of despair that's run by Dirge. And he basically is like, hey, Wanderer, why am I here? Why do you want me around? And she's like, oh, well, my mind wanders, as you know, beyond all space and time. I need someone that's able to, like, keep me in track, to keep me focused on, like, the here and now. And he's like, okay, well, let's leave. Like, why do we have to be here? I could think of 10 good reasons to leave. And she's like, did you say 10? That just reminded me of why we're here in the first place. So then she flies off to go talk to her sister, and Stargrave's like, all right, I'm just going to bail then. If she's just going to leave me alone, I'm just going to get a ship out of here. So he starts trying to get a ship. Meanwhile, Wanderer goes and talks to Dirge, and apparently there is this thing of the Council of 10, which are the enemies to Wanderer and all of her siblings, and they have followed them into this universe. Now, this council has been enemies of this family, but they are like a democracy where all 10 have to agree on something in order for anything to get done, and they never have been able to agree on anything. So it's never been a threat. However, Wanderer points out they agreed to come over into this universe. If they can make one decision, maybe they might start making more. And Dirge's just like, oh, that would be awful. But because I am of all sorrows, I like awful. So whatever. And so Wanderer basically leaves saying like, yeah, I don't really care. But how about you go and find some evidence of this happening? And Wanderer's like, all right, fair enough. And then because she has awareness beyond all time and space, she's like, oh, my butler's trying to bail on me. That little bastard. So we see Stargrave is at basically customs saying, I'd like a ticket to anywhere, please. And it's like, you need an exact location. We can't just give a ticket to anywhere. And he's like, no, but like, seriously, I don't care. Literally any place you have, I will take the first ticket to. And he's like, that's super suspicious. We're going to get security in here. And then Wanderer comes in saying like, hey, you trying to bail? Come on, let's go. So Wanderer flies off the planet with Stargrave and basically says like, hey, Council of Ten's a thing. They're like the Guardians, but like murderous and disastrous for this universe, and we have to go spy on them. And Stargrave's like, yeah, okay, that sounds perfectly awful. Great. As long as I don't got to deal with your sister's awful planet anymore, why not? So that's plot A, or B plot technically. A plot is, of course, Larfleeze, who is enslaved by all of the Orange Lantern Corps. And basically, they realize they can't kill him because he is now the Orange Lantern battery. But without a ring, he can't focus it himself, so they're just going to use him to recharge. But they really, really want to torture him. And so everyone is just trying to figure out who's going to be the first one to torture. And they keep on jumping in on top of each other, being like, hey, I want to do it, I want to do it. Finally, we get one named, I think, Warp Wrap, who comes in, and he's kind of like the main one, quote unquote. And he's like, look, guys, we just have to work together here. We all, like, let's not be at each other. Let's focus this all on Larfleeze. We have to also figure out what we're going to do about this planet. And one of them points out, like, yeah, no, this planet, we stopped here just basically to collect ourselves and recharge and whatnot. But, like, maybe we can make this our home world, wherever it may be. I don't think they actually give a name to it. But, like, it's a broken down planet. There's a bunch of ruins. And it's like, yeah, no, this place is a wreck. Why would we want to stay here? And it's like, well, let's just fix it up. Why not? And he's like, well, I don't want to fix it up. I don't want to waste my time doing that. It's like, oh, we won't fix it up. We're going to make Larfleeze do it. He's our slave. And Larfleeze's like, excuse me? I am nobody's slave. And he's like, no, you're definitely our slave. And so they take him out. They start beating him up a whole lot. And he still is pushing the point, like, I am not a slave. I'm not going to do that for you guys. One of them, like, taunts him, gets real close. Larfleeze bites off their finger. And so he's about to get like all of these huge orange constructs brought down on him, but then Warp Wrap jumps in saying, no, can't kill him. He's our battery. And everyone's like, yeah, screw that, man. Like, I'm willing to stop being an Orange Lantern if it means I can kill this guy. But everyone else stops and being like, no, that's not the case. Look, we just need to break down his spirit a little bit more. So they take Larfleeze and throw him down into this like ruined castle's dungeon and say, all right, once you start obeying us, you'll be allowed back up. And when he's down there, he starts having a hallucination of his mother, and the mother is just like, you literally are the worst, Larfleeze. I've always hated you. From birth until now, you have been the worst. And he's like, what? No, my mom loved me. What are you talking about? I was like, no, I didn't. The Orange Lantern has managed to like put these falsities in your head of you being some always beloved underdog hero, but you have always been the worst. And he's like, nah, that's not the case. You're lying. Stop it. You're confusing me. And he's like, oh yeah, am I? Maybe you'd like to turn me in. And Larfleeze is like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, no, that's what you just always did. And we see this montage of his like race being enslaved, and every single time any of them would step out of line, Larfleeze would single them out, point them out to the slave drivers and say, they did it, they messed up, they should be punished. He was a toady, he was a sycophant, and he was constantly selling them out to the masters. And that's how he managed to get his freedom, was basically by being the biggest brown noser of all time. And because he's always been that selfish, that greedy, that's why the Orange Light sought him out, because he's always been that awful of a person. And Larfleeze is like, no, I freed the slaves. I'm a hero. That's who I am, right? Right? And his mom's not answering him anymore. His mom's disappeared, and Larfleeze just curls up saying like, no, I know this is true. It's got to be true. I did it, please. And it's actually left on a very sad note of Larfleeze like having no idea what's true anymore. I like it, and you can hear the hesitation in my voice. Again, this is a book that like I think is mostly driven by its off-the-wall comedy and like just zaniness. And this book does have that. There are parts of this where it does just get like the whole airport custom scene. I glossed over it, but it is very well done. Same thing with the conversation with Wanderer and Dirge. Very funny. But then it takes this moment to like get a bit more serious and a bit more of like, no, this is a retcon. We're messing with Larfleeze as a character, and it's making him awful. It's making him the worst. And to some extent that is still funny in a way, but like the way it leaves it off on such just a sad note for Larfleeze of like, he doesn't know who he is anymore. While I like it in theory, the fact that it is coming from such an off-the-wall book, I don't know, it's kind of just a tonal whiplash, you know? It's a good beat, but I'm not sure if it's a good beat for this book. Beyond that, I mean, it's a fine issue. I'd say overall it's probably just a 6. It's readable 100%, but it doesn't stand out as any sort of like real important issue. It's just kind of there for the sake of, yep, another Larfleeze issue needed to come out. But again, we'll see if this book ever ends up being something bigger than it actually was, and when these two plots are going to converge again, because there's no way they're keeping them separate for that much longer. Aquaman number 25, written by Geoff Johns, art by Paul Pelletier. So this is actually Geoff Johns' last issue. I was unaware of that when I was going in, but yeah, definitely is. So last issue, we had basically, hey, who is the dead king? And why does he matter? And turns out he was Atlan, first king of Atlantis, maybe. And he was killed by Aquaman's ancestors, who was his brother. And turns out that he united the 7 seas, quote unquote, which included the Atlanteans, the Zebellians, and the Trench. And it all was because of his scepter. So we see Aquaman going down off the coast of Spain. And he's basically asking Volko, like, hey, what happened in the 6 months I was out? And he's like, I don't know. I wasn't keeping track of the surface world. But regardless, now you're back. You need to go and take out the dead king. And Aquaman's showing some doubts because, like, oh, yeah, I'm descended from the person who took him out the first time. Like, is that really something I should be doing again? And just like, yeah, no, totally. And then they talk about, like, okay, we know 3 of the seas are Atlanteans, Zebellians, and the Trench. And I'm a bit weirded out by the Trench being one of those because they're so non-human. Like, what creatures could the other 4 seas be? And Volko basically says, like, look, I spent decades trying to find them. They're extinct. They're gone. You don't have to worry about them. And he's like, okay, but what if you're wrong? So at this point, they make their way to a pirate ship. with a sunken pirate ship with a whole bunch of treasure in it. Aquaman punches through the floor and pulls out the Dead King's scepter, which he hid here. And he's like, yep, so we're going to use this, and hopefully it should allow us to command the trench, which we can then use to launch like an attack on the Dead King. So they make their way down into the trench. And Volko apologizes. He's like, hey, look, I'm sorry for like manipulating you. He's like, look, if you're really sorry, you just got to put yourself back in jail once all this is done. Like, that's the thing. And Aquaman also says, the only thing I want here, it has nothing to do with like Atlantis or whatnot. I just want to find Mera. And he's just like, no, you don't understand. I didn't pick you because of your bloodline or whatever. I backed you because you are a good person who can bring peace to both land and sea. And he's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So the trench show up. They start charging after Aquaman. He flashes the trident and says like, all right, stop. They keep charging. He's like, stop, please. And then everything goes black. So we cut over to Atlantis. Dead King is talking to Nereus from Zebul. And Nereus starts giving his address. And he's like, whoa, head of a... You got to kneel before the king, Nereus. So Nereus gets down on a knee. And he's just like, well, you sent us looking for the remaining kingdoms. They don't exist. The other seas are gone. Just like, they must have moved. They're in hiding. We got to go track them down anyway. I will reunite the seven seas. They will be mine. And then Nereus like chimes up being like, dude, we're going to stop hunting for ghosts. They're all dead. It's been thousands of years. And he's like, oh, but you forget I have your precious Mera imprisoned. You better obey me or else you're going to end up like her. Or I'll just kill her. One way or the other. So Nereus makes his way over to where Mera's being held. Turns out she's being kept in a completely dry room, no water at all. It hasn't been water in 2 days. And it's because every time she gets even a drop of water, she uses it to either A, try to escape, or B, attack the guards. And Nereus is like, hey, if you promise to marry me, you can get out of here. We like it's get out of jail free card. And Mera's like, I will never marry you. And if you do ever let me out of here, I'm going to kill you. That's how that's going to work out. So at that point, the walls start shaking, and wouldn't you know it, it's Aquaman leading all the sea creatures and the trench on an attack on Atlantis. First thing he does, he breaks into Mera's cell. Water fills it up. She's just so happy to see him. And then Nereus is like, oh, don't let Mera go. She belongs to me. And Mera's like, no, I don't. And starts just attacking all the rest of them. So once that battle's done, Arthur turns to Mera and it's like, look, hey, I really want to be next to you. And I promise I always will be from here on out. But like, I got to go help Atlantis real quick. So I'm going to go do that. And she just says, be careful. Real quick, he breaks into a prisoner thing where Tula, SWAT, and the last guy, I keep forgetting, the guard guy, they're all imprisoned. And they're just like, oh, we're so sorry, King Arthur. And he's just like, hey, no problem. You didn't think of me a king. I didn't really earn it. I promised to earn it going forward. So at that point, the Dead King comes forward and just be like, hey, I'm already king of Atlantis. How dare you try to claim that? And he's like, nah, man, you ain't king. You're enslaving your people. What kind of king needs to enslave his own people? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Someone who's been betrayed a lot. That's kind of a thing that makes sense. So Volko comes in to try to help, and he gets swatted away almost instantly. Aquaman gets stabbed with his own trident. He's like, you're not the king. You will never be. And he grabs the Dead King's scepter, and he's like, oh, even the trench are attacking me. I have been betrayed by all. Well, I'm going to do the thing I did last time. I sunk Atlantis before, I'll do it again. And he's about to stab his trident into the ground of Atlantis, but then Aquaman manages to grab it with his bare hands, which sends this like huge ripple of electricity throughout all around Atlantis. And everyone sees it and they're like, oh my god, Arthur is so cool. So at that point, he's basically just trying to talk down the Dead King. He's just like, look, I know what my family did to you, but Atlantis is not your enemy. He's like, yeah, they are. They're literally all attacking me right now. You're all kind of dicks. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So Aquaman punches Dead King a few times, managed to throw him down into like some hot magma pools down at the base. And when he gets down there, the Dead King is pinned down to the pool and his trident is being held at his throat by Aquaman. They both start melting. And as the scepter melts, the trench just kind of bail. And they're like, oh, okay, scepter's gone and they don't have to obey anymore. So I guess they're just gone. And then the Dead King, as he melts away, says, I'm finally going to see my family again. And it seems like Arthur is also going to be caught up in the magma pools. But he manages to get out And when he does, he's presented his trident again, and he's standing with Mera, and everyone's like, hooray, King Arthur, he's back. So we get the reveal, Nereus bailed, the rest of the Zebellians are out of the city, Atlantis is starting to rebuild ever so slightly, and he's just like, great, awesome, they can handle themselves, says Mera, let's go. And Arthur's like, I think I should stay and be their king. And Mera's like, you don't want that. You've never wanted to stay here and be their king. And he's like, right, but like, it's my responsibility. I gotta do that. And she's like, you're not gonna be happy doing that. And he's like, I will be happy if you stay with me. Huh? Yeah? And she's like, no, nah, I can't. I'm out. And tearfully, she just swims off and away. So we see up on the surface Amnesty Bay, she's getting her dog back from the dog sitter, and just be like, yeah, no, here's his bed, brought along some guests. I'm really going to miss him. I'm really going to miss seeing your dog Salty here. He was such a good dog. I'm going to miss him. And Mera just looks all sad. And we go down to Atlantis, and Arthur is sitting alone on his throne, and all of a sudden there's a shadow over him as he's all sad. And wouldn't you know it, it's Mera. She showed up again, and she sits in the throne next to him and says, shave the beard. And Aquaman smiles and says, sure, all right. And everything's all happy. Finally, epilogue. We're up in Louisiana. All the power's out. It's a stormy night. And we see Orm is staying with a family, a single mother and a son, who he met during Forever Evil. And she's basically saying like, oh, hey, my son can't get enough of your stories. Are you sure you can't stay? And he's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't stay here because I'm a terrorist. And, like, if anyone found out I was here, you'd be put in danger. But, like, this isn't my home world. I don't know. I'm torn. But before you can make any decisions, the wall blows down. And in steps Nereus saying, hey, I'm Nereus, king of the second sea. You're Orm, technically king of the first sea as far as I care. And I lied when I said that we couldn't find the other seas. I found them. And therefore, you and I will take our place amongst the kings of the seven seas. We will rule this planet once more. And story will be continued in the Justice League super event, Rise of the Seven Seas. Which never happens. Oh, Geoff Johns, don't write checks you can't fill. So yeah, this plot point never comes back, and Geoff Johns is off of Aquaman, so we just never see what happens with that. Or maybe we do. Maybe it's in a throwaway line where it's like, and then Nereus got amnesia. Beyond that, I mean, solid ending. I do think it wrapped up a little bit quick, where it was just, hey, I have the trench and therefore I win, because that doesn't seem like it should be that easy, you know? Like, the trench were not insignificant to beat, but it was still just beaten down by Aquaman. It didn't feel like it was that hard to get rid of the entirety of them, so yeah, I don't know. It was a fine last ending. I got completely caught out by the Mera bait and switch. Like, I didn't know how much was left in the book as I was reading it, because obviously there's like art stuff in the back of these trades. Yeah, I thought for sure she was actually gone. So good on you, got me there. Overall, I'd say this is probably, I'll say it's an 8. It's just shy of that 8.5. I think it is just a bit too easy of an ending. I think that maybe this should have been, you know what the problem was, is like there was all that stuff of like, oh, Scavenger was attacking and all this other stuff. It felt like it was just kind of too many plots going on at once. And again, they should have been focused on this part of it, the Dead King and the Seven Seas and stuff. And it feels like he only realized he wanted to do that last issue. And now we're finally just wrapping it up. It feels like a lot's been dropped, but it's still solid run by Geoff Johns. Best Aquaman that I've read, obviously. It's good the whole way through, and definitely give it a read if you haven't, because it has been significantly better than most iterations of Aquaman. All-Star Western number 25, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat. So last issue, Constantine showed up at this Burning Man festival, and apparently there's a demon here who runs on, like, sex magic. I don't know. Anyway, we open up with the demon getting out, and he blows out this huge, big, like, wave of magic energy. And it turns, well, it doesn't turn anybody, but it brings a bunch of dead bodies here to the festival. And all of these zombies show up and basically are targeted to Constantine. So Constantine, Jonah Hex, and Hex's girlfriend are all pinned down, and Hex has got some guns. So at that point, Hex starts opening up like a little pathway, just trying to fire and survive. Girlfriend's super scared, but he just says, well, good, use that, keep firing. And Constantine's like, all right, well, I'm going to go find the demon responsible, and you guys just keep doing what you're doing here. Bye. So at that point, Hex is like, okay, I can smell him, though. He's got these really specific cigarettes, and we'll just follow that. So they keep on running and gunning until finally they manage to track down where Constantine is. And as they enter into the tent that he went into, the demons got him, like, picked up by the neck. So clearly he's not in a good position. We see Jonah try to shoot the demon, which doesn't go well. So the demon tosses aside Constantine and gives his attention to Jonah. Just be like, wait a minute, you smell like a lot of death, like way more death than anyone else that I've met in like this year. So like, let's take a peek into your soul. So he does, and we get like beautiful 2-page spread of like a bunch of stuff that is in Jonah's mind, which strangely enough is Abraham Lincoln and like several other presidents, and like Grant is there. But, you know, Tallulah Black and a couple other things that we've seen throughout the story. And the demon pulls back and just be like, oh, a Hex. Oh, you're his agent. Okay, I get it. And at that point, as he's about to explain, Constantine comes in with this special knife, stabs it into the back of the demon's head, and it absorbs the demon's soul into the knife. So the girlfriend's got Jonah's head buried in her chest, and she's like, oh, please don't die. And he's like, if I do, this is definitely the way I want to go. And so he's safe. They pull out their guns and immediately aim them at Constantine. And he's like, whoa, what's all this about? And he's like, you left us for dead in the middle of a zombie horde. Like, yeah, but you were fine. And so he uses some of his smoke, and he's like, all right, let's see what this demon meant about you being his agent. And we see like some magical hoo-ha in the smoke. And Constantine reveals, okay, you have something like a guardian angel watching over you. Let's go get some beer and I'll explain. So they head back out. They see all the zombies have just turned into dust, and literally nobody at Burning Man noticed. And so we see them sit by a bonfire. A couple of girls are now hitting on Constantine for no discernible reason. And Constantine like doesn't really explain anymore, but he does say like, you have a guardian angel, but like of the fallen variety. Like you have a demon watching over you and making sure that you're okay. So yeah, that's something at least. But either way, in order to get more of that, we basically just drop it, and then Jonah says, hey, you got magic, can you send me back to my time? And he says, well, to do that, I would need a specific house with a lot of doors in it, if you know what I mean. And turns out he means the House of Secrets, which Constantine's like, okay, in order to get that, we need to get a certain plant-based individual who is not a fan of mine, and he can help you out because he knows where the House of Secrets is. So Constantine brings him out to a little like desert oasis area where there's a bunch of like cactuses and flowers and stuff. He picks a bunch of the flowers, spreads some seeds on the ground, and then goes with one of the blonde-haired girls that was fawning all over him, being like, anyway, you guys can handle him. I'm gonna go sleep with this girl. Bye. And then just walks off. And as the seed sprouts, it becomes Swamp Thing, obviously. And Jonah's like, God, I hate the future. Future sucks so much. What is magic and the plants and all this stuff. But Swamp Thing comes to being like, you guys smell like John Constantine. You friends of his? And he's like, nah, that guy sucks. But he said that you could help us. We're looking for a thing called House of Secrets. And be like, okay, I don't know if I can get you over to that. That's not really my area. Do you smell that? And Jonah's like, what? No, what are you talking about? And Swamp Thing leads them over the hill to this strange purple flower. And he's like, that's not a normal flower. That's not part of the green. I don't know what that is. It's an alien flower. And so he gets too close to it. He tells Jonah Hex and the girl to run. but it's too late, and he's managed to become corrupted by this purple flower, and it looks like he's going to try to kill Jonah Hex and Gina. That was her name. I tell you, this book relies right up until the very end of the issue to remind you that the girl's name is Gina. I gotta be honest with you. It's been a problem with this book every once in a while where it just kind of feels like it's doing nothing for a very long time. It's just kind of the, hey, here's what Jonah Hex got up to today, even if it's not a lot of anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Meeting Swamp Thing and a giant demon are something. They are big events, but they don't feel connected. They don't feel like one just naturally flows into the other. Like the fact that we have this reveal that there is a demon watching over Jonah Hex, and we just immediately say, all right, well, what do you know about time travel magic? It's like, oh, those don't really connect. I want more on the plot that you're setting up there. Why are we doing this other thing here? So yeah, it's not inherently any of these things are bad. They just feel very disconnected and not part of a larger story being told outside of it's the same characters each time. So yeah, I gotta say this one, as much as I really do enjoy like the 2-page spread of Inside Jonah Soule, fantastic. I gotta give this one like a 6.5. It just doesn't cross that 7 threshold for me. It's not bad. It's not a bad issue, but it just feels so like two halves of other issues that were just stitched together here. So yeah, it's fine, but it's a 6.5. Teen Titans number 25, written by Scott Lobdell, Scott McDaniel, and Tyler Kirkham is on art. So, I'm not even going to begin to try to explain how we got here, but Forever Evil, they were thrown throughout time. There was an annual where we went to the future and bad things happened. And now we're finally getting back to Kid Flash and Solstice. So Kid Flash and Solstice are in the future. They are currently pegged down with a bunch of people with guns, and Kid Flash seemingly knows them, tells Solstice to stand back, and then Kid Flash says like, everyone drop your weapons if you know what's good for you, and they yell back trying to tell him to stand down, and then Kid Flash goes around, just takes away all their guns, and noticeably all of his speech bubbles usually have a little red tint to them. This time they have a green tint whenever he gets like really angry. So he holds one of the main guys like at knife point, and he's like, oh, I never should have left you in charge. How dare you try to cross me? And then Solstice has a little flashback to like, how did we get here? All this time traveling stuff. And then we see Kid Flash stop breathing. And it turns out that these guys understood how dangerous he was, so they put a polymer in the air that every time he breathes, it makes it worse. So they've got guns trained on him still. They're about to fire, and then Solstice comes up saying like, oh no, I don't think, whatever you think he did to you, he never has, but you're gonna have to get through me to get to him. And it's like, okay, we don't have a problem with that. So a mile across the planet, Raven, Red Robin, Wonder Girl, and Superboy, or at least who they think is Superboy, show up, and Raven's like, okay, we are in the distant future and also on another planet. My powers are zapped. I am not going to be able to do anything right now, so I need to rest. And apparently she's also unable to feel Trigon's influence here in the future or on another planet. I don't know. Regardless, as they look up in the sky, they see a bright flash, and they're like, that's got to be Solstice's power. Let's go. We got to deal with that. So, oh, by the way, Superboy is also unconscious and is just being carried by Wonder Girl after the events of the annual. So Solstice and Kid Flash are just fighting against all the gunmen, and Kid Flash takes down one of them and just starts like really beating him way too much. Like his hands are bloodied and he still keeps going. The rest of the Teen Titans show up. They whack him in the back of the head to stop him, and everyone's like, dude, what are you doing? We're your friends. And he's like, who are you to tell me what to do? And he's like, we're just telling you not to kill that guy. He's like, what? No, I wouldn't kill that guy. And he looks down his hands. He's like, oh God, I might have just actually killed that guy. So all of a sudden he gets like a seizure or something, collapses to the ground. And then like the real police show up with like helicopters and blimps and stuff like that. And they got all these future tech. And it's like, hey, that's our suspect. you guys stay still too. And Wonder Girl's like, should we fight him? And Red Robin's like, we don't have the firepower to do that right now. I think we just surrender, and then we'll just see what happens after that. So at that point, we see, quote unquote, the good guys show up. They are the Echo Chronal Authority. And he's just like, all right, yep, we were sent for your friend. We sent your friend back in time for his own safety. We're like, we got this handled now. And then one of the cops goes over to Kid Flash and it's just like, I'm going to shoot him right here. He's a monster. He deserves to die. And then the head, whose name is Brain 3, is basically like, hey, that's not our orders. Stand down. And the soldier doesn't stand down. So Brain 3 shoots him in the back and kills him. And it's like, all right, anyway, everyone come onto our ship. We're going to take Bartor into custody with like handcuffs, but the rest of you're free to just walk around. So they get up there, and Solstice is basically chewing Red Robin out of like, how dare you let them just take Kid Flash? He's your friend. And Red Robin's like, he clearly did something, and I'm just, we will fight for him, but let's just see what in the hell he did, So at that point, she storms off, and Raven's like, hey, you cool? And Red Robin's like, no, I am on another planet in the far distant future. I have no idea what I am a dude in a bird suit. What am I doing here? And Raven's like, yeah, I also can't feel my dad's presence. She's saying this in her head, but she's like, yeah, I also can't feel that. Does that mean like evil is gone? Like what's going on? So Kid Flash is being kept in some like holding cell. Solstice comes up saying like, hey, we're here for you. We're going to help you. And Kid Flash is like, yeah, just let the system do its thing, Solstice. And she's like, what? Huh? We can break you out though. We can do it. And he's like, nah. I have a feeling this is something I need to go through. This is kind of a big deal. So I'm going to find out who I am and what I did. And she just kind of collapses next to the thing. And then Brain 3 comes up being like, hey, here's the thing. Bart, as you know him, made a deal with this thing called the Functionary. And his total testimony, his testimony as to what he did, will give exchange for his freedom. So we just need him to testify and then he's gone. And everyone steps up being like, hey man, no problem. But like, what did you do? And Kid Flash is like, I don't know. I can't remember. And so Brain 3 reaches into the back of his head and says, no, we got your memories right here. We'll go ahead and pull them up. It is sorted by most vivid. So this is going to be a bit of a shock regardless. And so they pull up this memory of him still in like a speedster-esque outfit, wearing yellow and green instead, sitting on a pile of blood and skulls. And everyone's like, Jesus Christ, man, what? But Raven taps over Red Robin. She's like, hey, just so you should know, Wonder Girl's like really freaked out for some reason, but she's not here. Should we check into that? And it's like, I don't think it's going to be anything bigger than blood and skulls. And then we cut over and we see that Superboy has come to and is currently strangling Wonder Girl. So might be bigger than that. Who knows? I think I said last issue that I'm basically done with this book, and that just hasn't changed. It's like, I appreciate the fact that we're finally, after like 17 issues of teasing like, oh, Kid Flash has a secret past, what's it going to be? We're finally just dealing with it. But like, it's so over the top. It's so like, he's a mass genocidal murderer. Like, it's too much, And then add on top of it the idea that like Superboy's not even Superboy anymore. Raven's got her own duplicitous thing. It's like, why is this group even a team? Like, none of them are trusting each other. None of them like care. It's all just duplicitous back alley deals the whole way through. I don't know. I don't care. I just don't care. That's the long and short of it. I just don't care. And this book has given me no reason to care. I will say at least this has followed just everyone's in one place and it's just one straight shot story. Down for that. Thank you. But beyond that, I can't give it above like a 5. It's just, it's okay, but it's still like, it's just barely scraping okay because of everything that came before it. I can't just forget 24 issues and 2 annuals that have led me to this point. So yeah, 5. The Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, number 6, written by Art Baltazar and Franco, art by Iguara and Rodney Buscemi. So, last issue, the Green Team went up onto a meteor because there's a rich guy who was doing evil things up there who's kind of involved in the whole plot that happened before this. And then they ran into Icicle, who seemingly destroyed their ship and then killed a member of the green team, JP. We open up and JP is without a helmet, kind of just floating off into space. He's like, well, guess this is it. I'm going to die. Hope he takes care of Cecilia. And then he sees a packet of air gel, which is apparently a breathable liquid. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll use this and that'll let me live for a few more minutes before I then suffocate out in space. So, cool. So then we see Cecilia, she's in her suit now. She's fully powered up and she's like, hey, my arm's back and I can fly. So she goes up, she grabs JP, and he's now safe. We go back to the Commodore, who's still frozen by Icicle, and just like, all right, well, now that I killed all your friends, because we think that he did, we're going to go back to base camp, and then they're going to figure out what to do to take care of you there. And Commodore's like, you do understand I could pay you like triple whatever you're being paid, but I have a feeling that that wouldn't matter to you. And Icicle's like, yeah, no. Belichick, the evil guy, is the one who gave me like a second chance at life. I owe it all to him. So we see back at base camp, Cecilia has brought JP there, and there's just two scientists outside with like the same kind of suits. And he's just like, oh, hurry, you have to help him. He's running out of air. And she's like, what? Who are you? How'd you even get on this meteor? And she's like, does it matter? This kid's running out of air. So the guy runs over, grabs one of the disc things, and Letitia is telling Paul, like, hey, that's only for emergencies. And Paul's like, yeah, it's an emergency. This kid's going to die. So they slap the disc on him, and we then see Icicle come to, and he just causes a huge ice fissure in the middle of the meteor, about to attack Letitia and Paul. And Paul looks over, he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, don't act surprised. I mean, why did you think I was brought up here? I'm not a scientist type. Why am I up here on this meteor if not to take care of problems like this? And I think it's Letitia's like, well, we all thought you were boinking Belichick. And he's like, yeah, see, this girl gets it. So at that point, Icicle stabs Paul through the chest with a bunch of icicles. Letitia freaks out, and he's just like, oh, please, you hated him just as much as I did. He's a prick. Screw Paul. So at that point, JP, he's now got his own suit, and he's like, all right, Icicle, time for round 2. And he goes to shoot something, but it turns out this suit is just basic functionary. It's not weapons-based or anything. It's just to keep him alive. So Cecilia has to step in being like, I got full power. You guys step back. So she starts blasting. Icicle puts up shields to defend. So Commodore behind him ends up throwing a few like spikes into his body. And at that point, he freaks out and he's like, all right, screw this. I'm now pissed off. So he starts launching a full attack. JP comes up, gets to the Commodore being like, hey, man, we gotta go. Like, regardless of what he knows, he ain't giving it up. And, like, we've got problems. We've got, like, normal people here who we need to defend. So at that point, JP makes the call, even though Commodore's not doing it. Like, everyone, make a break to the shuttle. We're going back home. Cecilia's laying down cover fire, and everyone's super impressed with how just brutal she is. Icicle launches a counterattack, which ends up shredding some of the armor off of Cecilia's hands, and it reveals like, oh, wait a minute, that's actual flesh. That's like real skin. It's not a robot arm. I have my real arm back. That's great. Fantastic. So at that point, I'm not entirely sure what happens on this page, but for some reason, the meteor just straight up splits in half. And we see Cecilia and all them are managing to get their way like onto one of the halves of a meteor. Icicle's on the other one, so he's no longer a problem. But as they get down onto the meteor, JP is so happy to see Cecilia, they break character and kiss in front of Commodore. And Commodore sees this and like all the other speech bubbles just go white. It's like that scene from like when a bomb goes off and you just hear the ringing in the ears. It's like that happens. And when the ringing ends and it comes back, it turns out it's LL is basically saying like, hey, Commodore, we're on a meteor that's hurtling towards Earth with no way of like really controlling it. What do we do? And it's like, okay. And Commodore's just not responding until eventually Cecilia's like, honey, are you okay? And he's like, don't you call me honey. You two just want to survive so you can keep making out behind my back. You know what? Let me concentrate. How about that? And so somehow he's steering the comet, the meteor itself, as it's approaching Earth. So they managed to get past the the re-entry. They didn't burn up on re-entry, but it's still like, okay, well, Earth is 2/3 water. Odds are we'll hit an ocean somewhere. And as they come through the cloud cover, they see like they are about to land in downtown Chicago. And it's like, yeah, great, awesome. Yeah, it just had to be that. So somehow, again, barely explained, the Commodore is steering this giant rock into a open street in Chicago, like into the, I think that's the East River or whatever, and like rides it right up into a building. And he's like, there, another happy landing. And out from the building steps a man in super gaudy gear, and it turns out it's Mr. Belichick. It's the guy who was running all the Meteor stuff up there to begin with. And he's like, hey, Commodore, you brought my stuff to me. Great, thank you. I hope you're going to pay for the damage to the city, though. And he's just like, hey, you're the one who caused it. And everyone's looking around. It's just like, Commodore, did you drive a Meteor right up to this guy's front door? Like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, you're the one who caused all this. You've been messing with the suits, and my dad had something to do with you. This is all coming back to you, Belichick. You got to admit to it. Belichick's like, yeah, of course it was me. Yes, I was the one to do that. I am a rich person. I do these things because I'm evil like that. And he's just like, you've been messing with people's lives. For what? For money. And Belichick's like, dude, you're a trillionaire. You don't pretend like this isn't like all about the money to you as well. What in the hell are you talking about? And he's like, oh, well, it's not about the money to me. Now I'm going to show you a lesson. And he starts like weaponing up towards Belichick. And Belichick's already got snipers trained all over him. And he's just like, oh, you think you could do something to me? All right, well, too bad. And he gives the order to fire. Cecilia jumps in the way of the fire on Commodore, takes all the shots, seemingly is dead. However, specifically her suit is like all broken up. It doesn't actually show her body. So doubting that. But JP sees this. He starts freaking out. And then through his suit, as Belichick was expecting for some reason, he becomes like a werebeast. He's like a giant Sasquatch looking thing. And he busts out of the suit. And it says, next time, what? Which, yeah, that's fair. That was about my reaction as well. Fine issue. I mean, here's the thing about the Green Team book is that I've never really been clear as to what the point of it is besides just let's show off a bunch of gadgets. But it seems to me like now they focused more on this idea of the origin of how each of these people got like powers. So obviously Commodore's got the suit. Cecilia has like some weird cyborg stuff going on because she's got a robot arm, maybe. And now JP's got this Sasquatch power set. Okay, I see the direction you're moving in, and I'm approving. I think that it's a fine direction. You only have 2 more issues though. So I want to see how you're going to wrap this up, because this is a big step here of you just gave someone Sasquatch powers and also maybe killed someone. So I don't know. I'm into it, but I'm just not sure where it's going. As for this issue, it was fine. I liked how they were just dunking on Paul the whole time. That was funny. Like, he did nothing wrong in this whole book, but it's just like, nah, screw him. He was the worst. Overall, I'm going to give this one flat 7. I do enjoy it. I think the art was fine. It's just a bit of a weird book. If you just care about the origin stuff and don't care about whatever the hell the villain's doing, it's a much better book, because honestly, the villain's motivation stuff is just way too deep and complex for where it really shouldn't be. But yeah, 7. And that's it. That's all the comics came out from DC Comics this November 27th, 2013. And as I said in the beginning, I'm like 95% sure that I went way over on time. So I'm just going to wrap this up real quick here at the end, because frankly, I don't want to go even further. So luckily, DC agreed with me, because next week they're only putting out 11 books again. So those 11 books in no particular order are Detective Comics, Batwing, Action Comics, Batman/Superman, Green Lantern, Earth 2, Green Arrow, Movement, Stormwatch, Phantom Stranger, and Swamp Thing. Out of note there, I know that Phantom Stranger is part of the Forever Evil Blight storyline, and honestly, I think that's it. I think we might only have one event book, and that's primarily because Geoff Johns didn't hit his deadline, because this was definitely the week that Forever Evil Normal was supposed to come out. So, oopsie doodles there, Geoff. Might want to get on that. Anyway, all that's coming next week. As for this week, if you have any comments on any of the books I covered this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments below or at any one of the social media places we got in the description, such as Discord, Reddit, or if you got some money to spare, some Patreon. I know we're coming up on the Christmas season, so why don't you give the gift of a happy me? I would be happy if you did that. Please. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week. And as always, try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.